Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lee.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear
Okay,
you fine.
good.
Guess we'll just give it a few minutes since we're still waiting on a quorum.
Yeah.
Nobody an attendee is supposed to be a panelist right now, so.
So we're expecting Joe and Tom, right?
As far as I know,
Yes. Martin is the only one who said he wasn't available.
Hey, Tom.
Well, we'll leave that up to you, Kayla, if you'd like to get started now or give it another minute to wait for Joe.
We could give him
Oh,
30
here he comes.
seconds. Oh, good. I was gonna say.
Squeaked in.
He's like, I'm coming. Okay. So I'd like to open up the February 5th, 2024 meeting of the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. commission members are Lee Schumacher, Tom Clancy, Anna Loss, Joe Boudreau, and myself, Kayla Friedenberg, are in attendance. I think we're just missing Martin Brogy. And our first item is a call to order. So I guess I just did that. And we have a public hearing. So we have a public hearing on application 23-68, 454 Horse Pond Road. And I'll entertain a motion to open up the hearing.
I move we open up the hearing on 2368 to 454 Horse Pond Road.
Great. Do I have a second? Oh,
Excuse
I'm
me for
gonna
just
second
a
and
moment.
then go ahead.
Madam Chair, we just wanted to read the legal notice into the record
Oh, okay.
for the hearing before we open it, if that's okay.
Yes. We didn't vote on that. We just have a second.
Pause. Maria, do you have that?
Yep, I have it up.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the Inland Wetland Agency will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 5th, 2024, 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted remotely as a Zoom webinar. The public is invited to attend by joining the webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information. Further details about how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. Application materials will be posted to the website under the calendar link in the meeting. Questions and/or comments can be emailed to landuse@madisonct.org up to 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Application number 23-68, 454 Horse Pond Road, map 84, lot 24, owner 454 Horse Pond, LLC, applicant Timothy Mack, Mack Building, LLC. Open Space Conservation District subdivision referral to develop 4 residential lots for single-family residential residences and regulated activity application for construction of common driveway and 30 linear feet of 4 feet by 4 feet open box culvert crossing of an inland wetland and watercourse. At this hearing, written communications will be received and interested parties will be heard. Dated the 16th day of January, 2024. Kayla Friedenberg, Chairman.
Great. All right. So we have a motion to open the hearing in a second. We've had it legally read in to the meeting minutes. Are there any other comments before we vote to open up the hearing? Okay, all in favor of beginning the public hearing on 23-68, 454 Horse Pond? Any opposed?
Right.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So it looks like we have the applicant and his engineer here. Is that okay? All right. Well, I think, Aaron, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I can give you guys a brief overview if you'd like, or if you'd like, I don't know, Tim, if you have anything to say, or if you want me just to run them through the project to get started.
Sorry, figuring out how to unmute. Yes, please, Aaron, go ahead and
Okay.
present. You'll be
Yeah.
much more proficient at it than I will.
Okay, yeah, if it's okay with the commission, I can just share the plans on the screen. Is that okay with you guys, or
Yep,
Okay.
that'd be great.
just get the correct screen up here?
Aaron, while we're waiting for you to pull those up, I just wanted to let the agency know, and you know that the agency's third-party consultant, wetland scientist, Davison Davison Environmental is also on the call. Matt Davison is here to listen in and participate in the hearing as well on behalf of the commission.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so for the record, my name is Aaron Schumacher. Here representing Doan Engineering and Tim Mack and Mack Building. As you heard, the address is 450 Horse Pond Road. So this is the site plan that I have pulled up now that we submitted. I have one with, it's the same plan. I just highlighted a couple things on it so that we can look at it a little better and kind of see the wetlands as we're moving through the discussion, but it's the same same line work that you guys have received. We just submitted revised plans. I believe Bob or Lenore sent them over to you guys today. So we apologize for the delay in that, and we understand it's going to take you some time to go through them, but I'll kind of run you through them tonight, and then we'd be happy to address any questions or concerns, anything we can address tonight, or we can also kind of take it back to the team, and we can get you a further answer, maybe at next month's meeting. But this is the property. The property is a total of 8.8 acres. Of that 8.8 acres, 1.27 acres is wetlands. The wetlands are basically, there's a small pocket in kind of the back field area that I believe you guys saw on the site walk, and then along the stream channel as well, near the back of the property. On this plan I have up, these are the wetlands lines, the blue kind of with the longer dashes. The upland review area on the property totals 4.35 acres. The upland review line is this kind of smaller dashed line, also in blue. So our proposal is to do an open space conservation subdivision. The yellow lines are the property lines. The orange lines would kind of be the interior property lines of the subdivision. So these would be lot 1 here, lot 2 behind it, and then lot 3 and 4, the lot areas would be in the back. And then this area would be open space, as well as the area to the lower portion of the property. The open space would be private open space with the association is what we're proposing. We're proposing a common access drive to access the 3 lots. We do have a wetlands crossing proposed. So this plan that we submitted to you guys is in the plan set without the colors on it, but this kind of zooms in on the wetlands crossing. We are proposing a 4x4 box culvert with an open bottom culvert, and we're proposing that the culvert will be buried into the existing ground by about 1 foot, so it would actually be a 3x4 opening for the stream to continue to flow through at the completion of construction. So this crossing does have direct impacts associated with it. The direct impacts are about 2,500 square feet, 0.06 acres. The other impacts that we have in the upland review area total 1.22 acres. And then our total disturbance on the site is going to be 3.47 acres when we're done with the construction process. So that's kind of the overall plan. I know there was some initial comments that we received, so I'm just going to elaborate on a couple more things, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. But so as part of the open space subdivision requirements, we do have a larger buffer in the back. So you can see on our plans here, there's 2 buffers actually. One is the required vegetative buffer, and the other is the building setback that's going to be required from the neighboring properties. Kind of more of a zoning concern, but I didn't know if the commission would be interested to know that this buffer is going to be vegetation that we're going to be required to maintain based on the zoning regulations. We do not have health approval for this project yet. We're working through finalizing the septic designs to get the health approval. But the septic systems, we believe, are code compliant at this point. We need to do a couple more test pits, which we have scheduled for the very near future to confirm that. And then we're hopeful that by next month's meeting, we can have any sanitary issues cleaned up with the health department. So hopefully, we don't have health approval yet, but we will hopefully soon. For your guys' information, as the septic system stands now, the 2 in the front are not really, they're mostly out of the 100-foot review area. The 2 in the back are slightly closer. The one here on lot 3 is 35 feet from the closest point to the wetlands, and the one on lot 4 is 40 feet from the closest point of the wetlands. We have also added some water quality areas to the site plan. So we have taken this common access drive and these two proposed houses, and we're going to direct them to, actually, this house is going to go to a smaller rain garden, just the roof area. The common access drive in this house will go to a slightly larger rain garden. And then we've done the same thing for the driveways and the houses in the rear, provided a rain garden to try to capture as much of the runoff from the pervious surfaces as we can, and run it through a water quality feature before it's released back to the wetland or infiltrated. We have sized these rain gardens in accordance with the new water quality manual that the state is going to make effective on March 30th. Basically, the only change that it makes in the calculation is instead of using a factor of 1, we use a slightly larger runoff factor of 1.3. So they are sized to the new kind of up and coming standards that are just about released or are released. I think that's all I have to cover on my notes. So we'd be happy to elaborate on anything that you guys would like some more clarification on, or answer any questions you might have. And like I said, if we don't have the answer tonight, we can certainly get it to you for next month.
Great. Thank you. Do any of the agency members have questions that they'd like to start off with?
No, not me at this point.
No, I'm good.
Well, I'll start with a question. So are the rain gardens the only treatment of runoff?
Yes. Yeah. So what we're proposing is to use the rain gardens to retain the water quality line.
And I know we're just chatting, but they look pretty close to the wetlands themselves. At least a couple of them.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So this one is close to this pocket. This one is close to the pocket. Yeah, they're probably, I can give you an exact distance on that actually, if you would like.
And they're sized, you said, with these new regulations, so that's 1.33, but can you translate that into, like, is that a 1-inch rain event? Is that what are they sized to capture in terms of rain, precipitation, snow, whatever?
Yeah, so it's slightly more than the 1 inch now.
Okay.
The factor of 1 used to capture basically used to be equivalent to catching the 1-inch storm.
Okay.
With the storms kind of increasing, they've now upped that to, that's why we have to use the factor of the 1.3 in the new standards that are coming out. So we submitted an engineering report to you guys that has some calculations on them.
Yeah.
And it actually has a table if you're curious on like the actual storage.
Yeah, I saw that.
But so this is what is required by the calculation, and then this is what we're providing. So they're all slightly larger than what's required, just because that's the way the numbers work out, and it's helpful to have them a little bit oversized than undersized, of course. But no, our intention for the water quality is that it will get stuck in the rain gardens, and obviously they'll be planted and it will infiltrate, and then anything that doesn't get kind of captured in the rain gardens will overflow and continue towards the wetlands.
Right, and that's why I was asking about how close they were to the wetlands, because they do seem pretty close.
Yeah, so they are 20 feet to the close one here in the front. This point here is about 20 feet to the wetlands, to that wetlands that's in the front field. So, and then this one is about 20 feet as well, but I believe that this one will overflow and have a little bit more overland flow down towards the crossing before it actually enters the wetland, just because of the way the slopes are towards the rear.
Okay.
if that-
I also had a question about the open space. Were there other, this is our first kind of real look at this. Were there other options for siting the houses? Because it look, you have this kind of, well, anyway, so the first question is, did you look at all the different places to put the houses?
Yeah, so part of the open space requirements that we have to do for planning and zoning is we have to do a conventional subdivision to show that we can get 4 lots before we go to the open space, which requires us to use slightly smaller smaller lot areas and smaller setbacks. So we did look at putting houses in different locations. For instance, one of the locations we looked at was putting a house kind of, you guys can see the cursor or no?
Yes, yep.
Okay. We looked at siting a house up in this area, bringing a driveway in this way and siting a house up here. So we did look at some different sightings that would, have different impacts. And this is kind of where we got that would have the least amount of impacts and still be able to site the 4 houses.
And do you have the breakdown on how much is wetland and how much is upland in your open space?
I do not have that number, but we could definitely get that number for you guys.
And, just thinking about the open space, having done the site walk, that's, part of having the open space, district is to preserve open space. So, and I might have missed this, what are the thoughts on keeping it open space and not being encroached by, the 4 homes with respect to mowing or putting structures on or whatever, right? Have there been thoughts about that?
So I think that, some things we did when we set the lines for the open space, is we tried to maintain the stone walls that are existing. So those would kind of be, like a natural border that would obviously keep the future homeowners from mowing on the other side of the stone wall, hopefully. And there will also be, legal language that will protect that open space from, it won't be developable in the future, if that's kind of what you're asking.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're plopping
Yeah,
down.
no,
I mean,
there'll
a
be,
beautiful meadow that looks, someone could go, oh, I'm gonna put, a gazebo, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that. And that's not the intent with this open space provision.
yeah, no, the intent is that the individual house owners will only have control over their kind of property, almost kind of similar to a condo association, where you just have ownership over your unit area, basically. So like this field area would be controlled by the association, and they wouldn't have the ability to, build on it, basically.
Right. Okay. Then I guess we'll have to see the legal language or whatever, because, if an association is in charge of it, then that, they could decide to do different things, even if they didn't build, right? They could mow it down, they could plant, I don't know. I guess I would just want to see protections on this space, given that that's the intent for this type of subdivision.
Yeah, we can work on that for you. I also think that, if someone were, say, if they wanted to put up a gazebo, they would obviously, 5 years in the future, they would have to be back before your commission, because it is all mostly within the upland review area.
Right, but and it's also
So,
in the back, right? So that's, one of these things where, yeah, things can happen. So I guess I would want to understand more clearly what the intent is for the open space and what protections are in place, because it looks like there's a lot of wetland, and it's, I don't remember, is this an NDDB? Did we get that information?
so we are in the NDDB kind of like bubble when you look at their mapping.
Right.
We put in the request to get a letter, and the letter came back that there was no species on site.
Okay.
which I believe we forwarded you guys, but I can make sure that Lenore sends a copy of that over for the files so that you have
And
it
I can check. There was a lot
as
of,
well.
a lot came in today, so I was kind of sifting through it. Okay, so those are just kind of starting questions, understanding the breakdown in the open space between upland and wetland area, and understanding that the rain gardens are the only stormwater management that you have. Does
Yeah.
anybody else have questions or comments? Yes, Lee.
I apologize. I wasn't on the site visit. How much grading and site work is going to be needed to prep those two lots in the back? To
In
get
the back?
Yeah, those two, yeah, to get
Yeah.
level, lots and that sort of thing.
So there's a fair amount of site work. As this is shown, this is a 10-foot retaining wall in the back.
Yeah,
However, the contour source that we used for our mapping is LiDAR data, which is not always 100% accurate. So as part of kind of the process when we go through this is we will kind of develop individual site plans for these units before they're kind of constructed, similar to like a plot plan you would do for a house.
Yep.
And it appears that when you walk the site, to us at least, that there's more of a flat area that would make this house siting be better and this wall would be substantially smaller. However, we don't have the topography to show that today. So right now, as the plan stands, there's about a 10-foot wall behind this house. There's no wall behind this house. And then I don't have the earthwork for the individual lots, but we did add this earthwork within the wetlands crossing and the upland review area. I do have those numbers. So in the direct impact, the crossing, we're going to cut about 5 yards and we're going to fill about 215 cubic yards. Within the upland review area on the entire site, we're going to cut about 550 and we're going to fill about 3,200 cubic yards. I don't have the numbers. We can definitely break out the numbers for the rear lots kind of on their own, and for the earthwork on the whole site. If that's something you guys are interested in, we can definitely break those out for the next meeting.
And the driveway, is that going to be paved?
Yes, so we are proposing, so the driveways will all be paved, yes. And then what we're proposing to catch the runoff kind of on the larger section of driveway here, which is kind of more built to like a private road standard than a shared driveway standard. We're going to put a Cape Cod style curb and a paved leak off to direct that runoff towards this rain garden to make sure that it gets there.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll transition and they'll be paved all the way back. This whole gray area would be proposed bituminous.
Aaron, oh, sorry, Kayla.
Oh, go ahead.
Just a question regarding the open space to pick up on where the chair was asking questions. There's shown encroachment on the property from the adjacent property owner, horse pasture area, both within the open space and it appears possibly within, or maybe it's right on the line of lot 4.
Yeah, so you're looking at the wire fence here. This line.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I guess as you're preparing your plan as to how to manage your open space, if you can include how you're going to address that. And I guess my other question was, I don't recall from walking the site any reference to a 10-foot retaining wall on the property. Is that part of your revisions that were submitted today?
No,
Yeah,
so we've always had a wall back here. But so that's when me and Bob have talked about this a lot, because when you walk the site, these contours look a lot less steep right back this area of the site does not look like this steep slope that it shows on paper. So that's why when we actually develop this lot and grade it out, and we get that kind of collect the field topo that will be kind of the final topo, we'll be able to see that that wall will most likely be a lot smaller.
But you're saying you're not gonna find that out until much later? I mean, so functionally right now, we have to look at this, assuming that there's gonna be a 10-foot retaining wall.
Yeah, at its max height, we should assume that there's going to be, that would be
Okay.
kind of the worst case scenario that we were looking at.
Okay,
Have you done field surveying in the area of the wetland crossing and the design for the culvert? Or is this all based on LiDAR?
No, so the only thing based on LiDAR is the contours. Everything else was field surveyed by Scott Caton as the surveyor of record on this job. If the commission is concerned about this wall and that it would be too much, we can certainly look into getting some topography shots in this area to kind of confirm or deny our suspicions so that we could kind of have a better understanding of the grading for that lot, if that's something that you guys would like to see.
I think a 10-foot retaining wall speaks to a pretty steep slope that has consequences for runoff, and you're near wetland, you're within the review everything. So yes, I think it would be helpful if it's, to understand better if that's going to be really that big.
Yeah, I mean, so, and one option is, so we propose the retaining wall here just because it's kind of the simplest option to start out with. This slope is, we can grade this slope off. If that would be kind of better, we could grade this slope off. It's just going to require moving into that kind of vegetative strip that we were trying to save in its natural state versus having to replant it. So part of the reason for this wall is not so much that kind of the slope is so severe that we can't make it, is because we're trying to protect that vegetative buffer along the other residential properties, which is kind of a requirement of zoning, that we have that buffer.
And how big is that?
So that buffer is 25 feet. It goes to this dashed line right here. And then the building setback is 50 feet, which is this dashed line. So we could, I guess, grade this off further and kind of remove the wall, but then we would have to replant this versus keeping the natural vegetation.
Okay.
Which I think in this case, the natural vegetation is pretty mature and would provide a better buffer than us trying to replicate it.
I guess I'm circling back to the topography, and so I just want to confirm if I understand this correctly. There has not been a T2 survey done on the property by Scott? Was it just a boundary survey?
I don't know. I will check with the official language on that for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what his mapping is actually certified to, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just to note of materials that were included, there is the inland wetland boundary was delineated, if I understand correctly, by Rich Snursky. And there is a 2-page wetland letter from Rich in the file as well, so that the agency has an opportunity to review that.
Yeah, I believe Rich recommended some plantings along the wetlands as well, which we can definitely get incorporated when we make the next revision to the plans.
I was going to ask if there is a landscaping plan with this. It sounds like there's not just yet.
No, so we don't have any landscaping proposed right now. Rich's memo that we submitted just today did have some comments on he would like some additional plantings, which we can get shown, and there will be landscaping shown for the next revision.
Okay. And maybe just a note or two about native wet or conservation mixes in the rain gardens.
Yeah, we can give you guys some details for what we're going to plant in there and what seed mix.
Does anybody else from the commission agency have questions? I know we have, and this is a public hearing, so I know we have, so Aaron Mannix, we have members from the public, who may be interested in speaking. Is this an appropriate time?
Yes, I just wanted to check with your consultant, Matt Davison, before moving to the public, if Matt had any questions on behalf of your review.
Yes, thank you.
prior to moving to the public hearing portion.
That would be great.
Thanks, Aaron. The only question I had now, Aaron, was obviously the direct wetland filling is associated with the wetland crossing and the culvert. Looks like the road rises about 5 or 6 feet above the existing grade at its highest point. What were you going to do on the road side slopes there? Would those be in terms of grade and then surface cover?
On the side slopes, okay. Yeah, so these are we're coming off the side of the road at a 3-to-1 slope back towards the wetlands. We did propose to put a timber guide rail just off the edge through the main. I don't know why my
So through the wetland crossing, it would be through the wetland, it would be 3-to-1.
Yes, yep, yeah, through the wetland it'd be 3-to-1. And kind of a little more, basically the way we've graded it out is there'll be a kind of a small pocket, kind of a small low point of about 84 here where it enters the culvert. And then we would anticipate the culvert being set at about 1% across, and then the stream would continue on its way. But these would be 3-to-1 side slopes here and here. And then this dash line, we're proposing a timber guide rail just to kind of help delineate the wetland area and, keep any traffic or anything that'd be passing on the road out of that wetland area.
I'm wondering, just for the sake of evaluating an alternative, if you could calculate what the total wetland fill would be if you reduce that grade, and then potentially, what would it be if you went as steep as you could with armoring?
Yeah, so the way we set this grade is we have minimum cover over our culvert. So we're coming with we're burying the 4-foot box culvert about a foot in. So we're coming up, we have a 3-foot rise there, and then the thickness of the culvert, and then a foot of cover on top of the culvert.
But as you approach that culvert, a lot of that fill seems like it's going to be side slopes if it's at 3-to-1. And if you tighten those up, what would that look like in terms of the total quantity?
Okay. Yeah, we could definitely prepare an alternative of going to like a 2-to-1 riprap slope and see what that would look like. And see if we could tuck it in a little bit, as well as get a square footage and then a cubic yard number for you.
And obviously, I understand too, you were doing a natural slope, so there is a balance there between stone armoring and wetland fill, and so that's sort of a competing interest there. But it just for the sake of understanding the quantities based on from the road filling, the embankments.
Yeah, no, we can definitely look into that. That's a very good idea. So we can work those numbers up and and get them over to you, Matt, and the commission, so you guys have time to kind of review them, and then we could have a discussion about them or discuss them at the next meeting.
And then obviously the open bottom box culvert is preferable for crossings. I'm assuming that it's going to comply with the Army Corps crossing standards.
Yeah, we can confirm that it will. But our intentions were to use the open bottom box, so it's more natural and kind of allows the amphibians and such to continue to move through the channel versus having to go through a concrete culvert.
Yeah, just like the openness ratio and that type of thing. With open bottom culverts, it's pretty easy to comply, but just to confirm it. That's all I had for now, though. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So, any other commission questions before we open it up? Okay. Of course, we'll be back next month as well. All right. So, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? I guess.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
someone with their hand raised.
All right.
Okay, allowing Carmen and Barbara Mangino.
Yes, can you hear?
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
Can you just,
I just want to say, first of all, that we were sent the wrong meeting ID information. So anybody that's wished to speak at this meeting has not been given ample opportunity. I had to go onto the Madison website in order to get the correct link to join. We were given a legal notice with a different password and a different webinar ID. So we have missed the first half hour of your meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, look, this is recorded and we'll also be having a hearing. We'll be continuing this until next month. So we'll make sure to get that fixed.
No, because we clearly have concerns. I'm Lisa Bickford. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents who are at 42 Strawberry Hill Road. And I have submitted, I believe, 6 questions ahead of time. Not sure if you had a chance to review those or if those were discussed in the initial part of this meeting. So my apologies.
Oh,
If they have.
so all we did in the first part is the applicant explained, kind of gave us an overview of the application and the commission asked them questions for clarification. But this is, we're still in the early days of this review of the application. And we did not talk about any of the submitted letters. And yes, I had a chance to look at yours today.
Okay.
And that letter was also forwarded to the applicant. So as the applicant goes through questions raised by both the agency members this evening, staff, and the public, they would have that opportunity to address those concerns, likely either this evening, if time allows, or at next month's meeting as well.
Okay, and we will be invited as we were with this initial legal notice, or should we just review the calendar and try to link on?
The legal notice is only advertised for the opening of the hearing. You will not be notified again by the applicant. The agency, you can plan that it would be at your next regularly scheduled inland wetlands meeting, which is the first Monday of March. Is that to look and see what time that is, but the agenda and the link to the Zoom information will be posted on the town's website.
Okay, I'd like it being known
And
on the record.
calendar.
That's fine, but I would like to have it known on the record that we weren't given the proper Zoom link for tonight's meeting. I know this is one of many that I'm hoping are going to occur, but you can understand the level of anxiety that we feel as surrounding neighbors to this proposed building site. And we would like to be able to have all our questions answered and fairly for the people that may not have realized that they're on the wrong Zoom link and are still waiting to be allowed in.
Okay. Are there any of the questions? So as Aaron said, the applicant has received a copy of your letter. Are there any, and just to be clear, we are definitely having the next meeting. I believe it's March 4th at 7, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that will be March 4th at 7 PM. That'll be on the town's website. So you're welcome to ask questions tonight if you'd like. Or if you prefer, you can you can ask next time. You can do both.
That's fine. I mean, as I said, we had submitted our questions as instructed.
Okay.
I think it was 24 hours prior. But I did hear you talking about the retaining wall. That was certainly one of our concerns. My parents reside at 42 Strawberry Hill Road, which is directly, I don't know, in the, on the line, it abuts lot 3, I believe it is, that's being built. So I did hear pieces of the retaining wall talk. I guess our main concern is really if there's going to be any blasting done, because it is a severely ledged area. And many of the surrounding homes reside on the same piece of ledge. Was there any blasting that was going to be done in this area for this proposed building site?
So I have their questions open. If we'd like to run through them, I can share them and we can talk about them if you guys would like. It's up to the commission. If that would
Yeah, I don't want to hold anybody up either, being that it's quarter of. I understand that. These can be reserved till the next meeting, but the blasting was really the main concern that we had, along with the, several minor things.
I think we can kind of address that a little bit. So the testing we've done out there on site so far shows about 80 inches before we hit any kind of refusal with our test pits. Now, when we hit refusal, that doesn't necessarily mean that we've hit ledge at 80 inches. It could just be that it's large rocks that when we do test pits, we're using a smaller machine. So we don't know if there'll be any blasting, but Tim could probably answer this better, but if there is any blasting, I know that there's a lot of rules and regulations concerning it, and obviously we would conduct it in accordance with all the regulations that would be required. So I don't think we can definitively say there's not going to be any blasting until we're, kind of obviously in the construction process. But the soil testing right now, shows that we have anywhere from 60 to 80 inches plus before we're hitting any kind of refusal or any material that, could potentially need blasting. I know your question 2 reference to noise and, kind of the construction noises. I believe it was kind of directed at that you might be concerned about noises that could kind of happen during construction. I don't know if the town of Madison has a noise ordinance, but once again, I would say that we would, be following any ordinances, and the staff that's going to be doing the actual construction is more familiar with that, and obviously they will be respectful of the neighbors while they're kind of working through the construction process. As you said, I think we talked about kind of question 3 a little bit with the retaining wall. And we'll definitely try to get some better information on that for next month or in the next set of revised materials that we give you guys by how much we feel that we're actually going to be able to reduce that wall, and kind of showing some of the different scenarios and what would be the worst case kind of scenario.
Excuse me 1 second. If I could just circle back to question 1 about the blasting. I
Yeah.
had a follow-up to that. If blasting needs to be done and everything is in accordance, if there is any damage done to surrounding foundations or structure of existing homes due to the proximity, who is responsible for that damage? And should we be documenting, taking pictures or videos or whatever of what we have existing? And if there is any further damage down the road, who would be ultimately responsible for that damage?
So I just want to kind of refocus the questions and some of the concerns. Some of the concerns that you are raising are not within the purview of the Inland Wetlands Agency and
Okay.
fall more appropriately under the planning and zoning review process. So I'm just going to ask that the concerns that are raised are related to inland wetland impacts, as this subdivision referral is based on just that, really. The
Okay.
regulated activity before the commission is the construction of the shared driveway and the culvert crossing, and a referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission, essentially when the applicant applies for an open space conservation district, which is a separate public hearing process through the Planning and Zoning Commission for a zoning map amendment, which is basically the landing of this floating zone of a conservation subdivision on the property, and then would require an additional subdivision application through the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that some of those questions regarding impacts to the property or potential for blasting would be more appropriately reviewed at that time, and not
Okay.
unless, of course, there are blasting concerns regarding impacts to inland wetlands. And
my
that would be,
apologies for that. I'm not aware of what the formatting is of this, and we will absolutely bring that forward at the appropriate time. So thank you for letting us know that. We're new to this, so.
oh, sure.
My
I just
apologies.
figured as well for just general public questions, because this is the first opportunity to kind of discuss the project and what's proposed. So I'm sure as abutters, several questions come to mind. But just so that you understand what questions this commission can help answer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we can definitely be prepared when we get to the planning and zoning phase to address the blasting issue further.
Yeah, I imagine.
Kind of just running through I think we already talked about the wall and the grading. That was question number 3. Question number 4 is regarding the box culvert, and are any considerations being made to preserve the wooded area, trees, and wetlands? I would just say that, kind of we talked about the vegetative buffer, by going through the open space kind of subdivision process, it does require us to have that larger vegetative buffer. So we're trying to protect that. And then, most of the upland review area and the wetlands will be protected, by the open space. And I know the chairman had asked earlier that we kind of work on the legal aspects of how that is going to be protected, and we'll definitely work on that language for next month, so you'll have some clarification on that. Question number 5 pertains to one of the adjoining properties, lot 23, which is not part of this application, but is owned by the same property owner. That is an approved building lot. So it's not part of this application, but it is an approved building lot. They most likely will have a single family residence built on it at some point in the future. And number 6 is, what is the time frame? It references possibly 5. Just to clarify, our proposal is for 4 houses. And the time frame would be once we get our approvals. Obviously, we would like to start construction, once our approvals are in place.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there other members of the who would like to ask questions regarding inland wetland impacts on for this application?
I have Prasad. I'm allowing to talk. She needs to unmute. Prasad, can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, thank you.
Okay.
Just state your name and your address, okay?
My name is Sujata Prasad. I'm 50 Strawberry Hill Road in Madison. I'm one of the properties which are adjacent. Again, I was given the wrong Zoom link, so I do not know what was discussed earlier. I'd like to get a recording of that. And then based on that, I'm going to pose some questions because I have no idea as to how much what was discussed. It's not only going to affect the fauna, the flora, the groundwater. All of that is going to be affected. So again, let me review all that, and then on March I will pose all my questions. But please give us the right, correct site.
Yes, so
Yes. The recording does get put up the very next day. It's being recorded and we add it to the website. So you can review it. You can
Okay,
review the meeting.
and who do I propose send the questions to?
Your questions? You
Yes.
email the same email that you emailed today. We got an email from you earlier today.
Yes, saying
Yep.
that I did not. I was on the Zoom link since 7 o'clock.
yeah, so yes, so apparently the legal notice had the wrong Zoom link. For the March meeting, you'll need to go to the town website. And for the March 4th meeting, there will be a Zoom link there and we'll start at 7. And you'll be able to see what we've talked about already tonight. As Maria said, the recording will be up tomorrow, and you can submit any other questions that you like and or attend the public hearing in March. But you can submit questions to the same email that you did today, because we did receive your email.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and
And-
I'm sorry about the Zoom.
And again, the video is through YouTube, and the town does have a link directly on the homepage of our website to YouTube recordings for the agency under Town of Madison. And also there's a direct link in the Agenda Center. And as Marie indicated, we'll update that video recording to link right to this this evening's meeting date. So that you'll be able to recap what was missed. And then again, we'll confirm or review the legal notice again, and if necessary, work with the applicant to send some updated information to abutters regarding that. But I'm glad to see that you all did make it through the agenda link also. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sujata.
Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak?
Yes. Attorney Bilcheck.
Okay.
Marie, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Bill.
Tony William Belcheck, offices at 12 Brookside Road, Madison, Connecticut. I'm representing both Richard Brosnick and Jill Delmonico, who live at 468 Horse Pond Road, and Joshua Billsborough and Thu Tran, who live at 482 Horse Pond Road. They abut the property. And I have concerns of what are you doing? You're asphalting the road or paving the road. What are you doing about road contaminants?
So the salt and the sand and any contamination like that that would fall on your kind of your common driveways. will be treated by the rain garden in the water quality volume.
Because when you had the site plan up, the
Yeah, do you want me I can share the site plan again. I got the Adobe working if you'd like. Oop. Attorney Belichick, that's the site plan again for you, if that's helpful.
okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
My clients are, if we look at Horse Pond Road, they're just north of I guess the plot that is not part of the application. And basically they have two deep wells, and they're 280 feet, 325 feet. So they're drilled and they're tapping into the aquifers that are going to pretty much be deep and below where the wetlands and where the wetland stream runs. They're going to be drawing off that. So one of the concerns is the roadway contaminants. Are you going to be curbing those the roadway or the driveways?
So on the kind of the private road section, this first section of wider driveway, we are proposing a Cape Cod style curb to direct the runoff towards this rain garden. The rest of the driveways we're not proposing to be curbed.
Isn't that a concern because of contaminants entering the wetlands? It's a steep grade for units. Is it 3 and 4 north? The two lots up there, it drops a good almost 30. All the waters in any contaminants are going to be just entering right into the wetlands. So what are you doing to contain those?
So for the two lots in the rear, most of those driveways, not 100% of it, but most of those driveways areas will be directed towards the two rain gardens that are in those areas. Which once again, just like the front rain garden, will collect the water quality volume and mitigate kind of that first flush.
But as the culvert that you're placing, there's no protection there.
Nope, there will be a section right during the direct crossing that will not have a protection. We could certainly look into collecting as much of the area as possible. We could look and kind of delineate exactly what we're collecting and see if we could collect more. But there will be probably a small area that is not collectible.
Okay. And the other question is on Unit 3, the furthest north lot. The septic system is you said 35 feet off of the actual wetlands?
Yeah, so lot 3, the one in the back, is 35 feet. Yes.
35 feet. And so that's pretty close to the actual wetlands. You're already within the whole leaching field within the buffer, and the secondaries are also. And it's a steep grade. Once again, you said that the area where the house is, the topography is a lot flatter than what is presented on the map. Once again, we can only go by the topography on the map. And so you got like a 20-foot, 30-foot drop from the top, and it's going to flow right. All the fluids are going to coming out of the leaching fields are going to flow right into the wetlands. Is that an issue?
So the septic system will be constructed in accordance with the Connecticut Public Health Code. So the contaminants will not flow directly into the wetlands. There'll be an area of soil that will be able to treat those before the water enters either the wetlands or the groundwater system.
Has there been any alternative plans? Because pursuant to the open space subdivision, that was a 7.6E. You're supposed to provide alternatives because once again, the septic systems are within the review area and it's 35 feet off of the wetlands. Is there any other place that the septic system could be placed so that any of the fluids or sewage coming out will be treated and further away from the wetlands?
We could definitely look into other areas to place the septic system. We've placed them kind of in the areas that make the best sense from an engineering standpoint. But obviously there's other areas on this property that could potentially be suitable.
Okay, because I think, pursuant to the regulations, section E of 7.6, it requires if there's going to be any wetland impact that you have to show alternative consideration. And I don't see anything here. And I'm sure the commission would like to know what contaminants are going to be entering the wetlands and how are they going to be treated and how they're going to protect the wetlands. Those are the only questions I have at the current time.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other members from the public who want to speak tonight, recognizing that we'll be back again next month? Of course, you can talk tonight.
I'm telling Maria she's muted while I'm muted.
I was like, you're muted.
Adam, whoever, no last name, just Adam.
Okay.
Hi there. Yeah, thank you. I forgot to put my last name on there. Appreciate the time to speak and respectfully, just like other members of the community, was not able to join thanks to the incorrect link that was given. So I didn't plan on speaking today. Just wanted to listen and understand. So I live at 691 Green Hill Road, and we're a little concerned here. The reason we attended was a concern because we already get water runoff from that property that runs from the west side of our property down to the middle and then across and down Green Hill Road towards our neighbors, who I believe are also in attendance as well and had the same issue we did. So we're worried that there's going to be impacts to an increase in water that runs across our property and then down across our neighbor's property as well. I was planning on listening in the beginning and seeing the map work and having you guys walk through what that would look like for us, but obviously didn't get that opportunity to do so. And again, respectfully, watching the video and then thinking about questions and emailing them in and waiting for responses is not really ideal in this situation, right? And then waiting a month for that response when that problem kind of dissipates a little bit. So, I guess that's why I wanted to make that known on record, just as to why I'm speaking and what our concern is. And we'll go from there, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so and we're not trying to have people have to come back next month, but this is the very opening of the hearing, and that we, the commission, have hired a third-party representative to do an assessment of this property, and we don't have that report yet. And so this is still early stages. So it's great to have input from the public. And I'm sorry again about the link. Hopefully we can sort that out. And we're not trying to say you should watch the video and come back next month, but the commission has also asked a lot of questions, and so we're anticipating a lot more information next month altogether, all of us. I think we should just register that maybe that link should get fixed or
Yes.
not get sent out or something. I'll just register that as well for everyone. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Yes. One more.
Okay.
Ed Rodell.
Okay. Hello, Mr.
Good evening. Can you
Rodell?
hear me?
Yes, we can. You just state your name
Hi,
and address.
my name is Edward Radel. I live at 30 Strawberry Hill Road. I'm one of the abutters. I just want to express some concern over, there was some talk earlier about LiDAR being the source of the topography. If we're looking for some approval at future meetings from the wetland and zoning agents, we need to make sure that that information that we have, talking about the retaining wall, et cetera, is as complete as possible so that, we can have a true review of what's happening at the site. Certainly some concerns during construction about runoff or, runoff when the dwellings are in place into the wetlands. And we need to have the commission able to make an informed decision about that. And then sort of the second point, before the March meeting, you'd appreciate that any of that documentation can be placed on the website as soon as possible so that the public has an opportunity to provide, appropriate level of review. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? No. Okay. Well, clearly we will be meeting again next month to chat about this. Hopefully, so Mr. Davidson, I assume we'll have a report by then, maybe?
All right, let me undo both buttons. Yes, I will do my best to get something out expeditiously so that Dawn Engineering has enough time to address any questions and comments that I have.
Okay. Great. All right. Is there anything else that we need to address before we make a motion to continue this hearing? No. Okay. Well,
Ms. Chairman, can I just clarify a couple things before we move on?
yes.
Okay, so just want to clarify that the septic systems, when they're designed in accordance with the public health code, won't be like leaching contaminants into the wetlands. The
But they-
health code,
Well, go ahead.
the health code has standards in place that require us to have setbacks and, a lot of review that we're not going to be leaching contaminants directly kind of into the wetland area. And also kind of on the LiDAR thing, I don't want to have people go away with the understanding that the LiDAR is wrong. The LiDAR is a, acceptable standard and it's a correct, it's topography. It's not kind of as accurate as the field topography. Kind of my discussion was that we don't know that it's going to be a 10-foot wall. And we don't know that there, could we put a different style unit there? There's some options with putting a different style unit, with removing the wall. So I didn't want us to get hung up on that it's a steep slope. My point of bringing up the LiDAR was to kind of go back to the field visit that you guys did and kind of think about the slope as you see it in the field, not as it looks on the paper. In this case was kind of the point that we were trying to bring up. And then I guess my last question is, I heard some of the neighbors just mention concerns about kind of flooding on some of their properties. As part of this application, so far we've only done water quality volume for you guys. We've not done, and I don't believe it's required unless you guys would like us to do it, kind of the full analysis for, flows existing and proposed. So is that something that you guys are going to be looking for as a commission or no?
That is a good question. I think we have seen those in the past. Aaron, do you have thoughts?
It's
No, not
doable,
you, Aaron. Sorry, the other
Okay.
Aaron. Very confusing. Ms. Mannix.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
You're talking, assuming that for the development for the shared driveway as far as increased runoff off site, is that what you're referring to, Aaron?
Yeah, so I just heard a couple of the neighbors, I didn't write down their names. I know Adam was one of them, and there was another one that I believe lived on kind of the southeast side of the map, say that they might have some flooding concerns or some water coming off the property. And I just didn't know if the commission's going to be expecting it. So there's a lot of impervious on the property today, right? The barn and the house and driveway and such is going to be removed. And then we're going to be replacing with impervious. Now, I don't know what the numbers are that if we're increasing or decreasing impervious, or if we're increasing and decreasing kind of the, the two, 25, 10, 100-year storm, is that something the commission is going to want to review or no?
Well, we typically ask what the change in impervious, the house and barn, all of that's gone. I don't know if you've been out, that's all
Yeah.
gone. But assuming you could probably still get those numbers, but we typically do like to understand the change in impervious surface between what was there and what will be. That is a question that we routinely ask. Now, are we going to ask, do we routinely ask about, water flows and all? We ask, but I don't know, I can't remember. I know there's been some applications where we've had that information. But we're definitely going to want to know the change in impervious cover from what it was. Obviously it's going to be a lot more because it was just a house and a barn, trailer, and another barn. But that is something that we often ask. I don't know, Aaron Mannix, do you have any
Yeah,
other
I don't, our town engineer hasn't had an opportunity to review the drainage report yet, so I'm not going to say there won't be additional questions. I know there is a wetland system to the south there that is part of the wetland system on this property. So the increase, I think, is helpful. If you're able to do those calculations relatively easy, I think it's not out of the question, especially as you're going to be moving forward into the zoning process, anticipating that I think the report should be the same for the commission for wetlands and planning and zoning as far as your drainage study. So if you can keep them, I would do the whole thing, knowing that planning and zoning will look at it as part of the subdivision process.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think we know, especially for subdivisions. Yeah. And with respect to contaminants, yes, the public health code does have their code, but that doesn't mean that you don't get leaching from leaching fields with nitrogen, right? So that, and so we do see effects of that in wetlands, which changes the whole composition of wetlands with increased nutrients. So while the health code is coded for human health, we're interested in impacts on wetlands. So trying to keep septic systems away from wetlands is always a good thing, and their leaching fields. So just your comment about the health code, yes, understood. But there's, contaminant, things leach out of there. It's a leaching field. So, and there's a lot of wetland. That's a pretty active wetland. The wetlands on that property, you've got a lot going through there.
Yep, understandable. Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, there is one
One more
additional
person.
member of the public on this item with their hand raised, Cynthia Brandt, if you'll entertain another comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. This is Cindy and Josh. We're at 699. I'll be very brief. I don't know if we have weight as neighbors, but we would love to have that runoff drainage survey done as well. The amount of water that comes off that property onto our property is really significant. It's not a 50-year storm probability issue. It's just the past couple of months. It's been, with all the rain we've got, it's really dramatic. So I don't know, maybe building those subdivisions would actually lessen the drain off, but I'd love to know if it increased, because we have well water as well. And I would just love to know the results of those studies as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it looks like we'll have lots of questions on drainage, so good to get those numbers. All right. Kind of going once, going twice. I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing till March 4th.
I'll make a motion to continue to March 4th.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of continuing this hearing on horse bond to March 4th? Yes. Okay, great. thank you very much, and
Thank you, Commissioners.
we'll see you in
Yeah,
March.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Thank you,
Thanks.
Tim.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, so our pending applications, we have 23-69 Longshore Lane. This is, as you will recall, we had a public hearing on this. We had a lot of activity on understanding what was going to happen with this trail and how to get it so that the property owner can access the property. And then we also consulted town council with respect to the conservation easement and how we could rule on that. And town staff has very ably drafted a resolution for this. But and as we talked about last time, just to review, and hopefully you saw in the minutes, we closed the public hearing, and we, you know, kind of decided to let staff draft this resolution. So hopefully you guys all had a chance to look at it. Basically, the resolution goes through the history and the findings, and I'll just paraphrase and then we can discuss if there's any discussion. And basically says that we approve this application with the following conditions, which are kind of our standard conditions, that you know, the Inland Wetlands Agency agent be notified that the site work should be in soil areas shall be stabilized, no stockpiles, and in the event that the applicant secures legal access to the land via agreement with 78 Longshore, then it would no longer be required, because that came up as an option. Although, given that they're in litigation, as they discussed, I don't know how likely that is, but it's nice to have an option. So are there any, those are kind of the, you know, that's the meat of what the draft resolution says. Does anybody have comments or discussion or additions or anything else they want to talk about before we kind of move forward with this?
No, I thought it was real good.
Okay. I believe, Aaron, that I'm glad there's just one Aaron left.
Do we have to read the thing into the record, or can we?
I think
Well, yes. So given that this it is a significant activity, application, the potential for impacts to the wetlands, it's typical that you do facts and findings as part of your resolution. And as Kayla had mentioned, I tried to capture those key issues that were discussed by the commission, your specific questions, as well as issues raised by the abutting property owner and their expert, Michelle Ford, who they had hired and provided some questions. And then again, I think what takes up a good portion of your findings are also related to the legal questions that were raised as part of the conservation easement that was executed, and speak to the opinion from your land use council, Pete Gelderman, from Birchman Moses, and taking into account the comments that the agency had following last meeting, where you kind of digested that legal opinion and made your own findings.
great.
I can screen share if that's helpful.
I've got it pulled up. I'm happy.
Somebody who has a glass of water
I have a glass of water.
Go ahead.
So should I read this and then we make a motion and vote, or should we do a motion? I'll read this and then we can.
Yeah, this would be, you know, to offer a motion to offer the following resolution. And then you can read through that and get a second and make any edits as you see fit at that point.
Okay, well, I moved, so am I moving to read this resolution that we just said?
Right.
Okay, I
Yes,
move
you can make the motion, Kayla.
that we read this draft resolution and then discuss and vote on it.
A
There's-
second.
Okay. All right. Facts. The Madison Inlet Wetlands and Watercourses Agency received this regulated activity application number 2369, Longshore Lane, map 25, lot 74-1, owner Lily Fogel, applicant, John Paul Garcia Associates, regulated activity application to restore disturbed area to a pre-disturbance condition and allow construction of a trail for the purpose of maintaining and accessing property that is landlocked within the 100-foot upland review area and within the inland wetland. The agency received the application on December 5th, 2023, and deemed the application a significant activity. This application is a resubmission of application number 23-39, and all application documents and materials, including public hearing testimony of this application, September 11th, 2023, October 2nd, 2023, are incorporated in the record. The agency walked the site during a regular site walk meeting on June 17th, 2023. Application 23-39 was withdrawn and immediately resubmitted on December 1st, 2023, in an effort to restart the statutory time clock. A public hearing commenced via Zoom platform on January 8th, 2024. Upon closing the hearing on January 8th, 2024, the agency began deliberations. Findings regarding the regulated activity. The subject parcel is 22-43 acres, currently unimproved, and contains both tidal and inland wetlands. The inland wetlands in the original application submission were delineated, as noted on the plan, by Eric Davison and digitized from a map titled Subdivision Map Longshore Estates, prepared for Ed Zimmerman, Maplewood Lane, Longshore Lane, probably, Madison CT, and filed with the Town of Madison Wetlands Office. The applicant proposes to create a 10-foot wide access trail from Longshore Lane westerly to access upland area for maintenance purposes. This trail would have a direct impact on 232 square feet of inland wetlands. The trail would be comprised of wood chips over existing grass and/or lawn, as shown on application plans from John Paul Garcia and Associates PC, dated May 8th, 2023. Detail sheet C-2 highlights a section of the wetland crossing which includes the use of geotextile fabric base, 10 inches of stone, and 3 inches of wood chips. Some fill is shown adjacent to the trail to match existing slope. The applicant indicated that no toxic material will be used and that area is relatively flat. The applicant further indicated that the area is relatively flat and there is little upland area to contribute to runoff. Any disturbed areas would be reseeded with 2006 New England erosion control restoration mix. The plan set included a sequence of construction as well as sedimentation and erosion control measures. A letter of opposition was received from attorney John A. Kaplan, representing Stephen Caraba and Catherine Caraba, both in her individual capacity and as trustee, probably his, of the Kristen Leon Lyons Revocable Trust. The trust is the owner of 78 Longshore Lane, and Mr. and Mrs. Caraba reside at this property with their family. Attorney Kaplan's letter highlights 3 reasons for recommending denial of the application. First, the Carabas and the trust believe the area impacted may include tidal wetlands. The letter recommends denial or updated delineation of tidal and inland wetland boundaries. Second, the Carabas and the trust believe the application should be denied because the subject area is covered by a conservation easement agreement between Longshore LLC, Shorelands LLC, and Town of Madison. The conservation easement agreement was the product of an exhibit incorporated into a settlement agreement dated 7/29/13 between Longshore LLC, Shorelands LLC, Town of Madison, the Town of Madison Planning and Zoning Commission, and 107 Longshore Lane LLC. The letter further notes that although the conservation easement does not appear to be filed on the Madison land records, it was signed by all parties and is a valid and binding agreement that expressly runs with the land. the conservation easement agreement constitutes a conservation restriction under the regulations, and the agency should deny the application because the applicant failed to provide notice required by section 7.11C of the regulations and failed to provide a letter verifying the application is in compliance with terms of the conservation restriction as permitted under section 7.11D. Moreover, the conservation easement agreement prohibits certain activities, including some impacted by the significant activity detailed in the application. Third, the application does not contain sufficient information as to its proposed purpose, or at the very least, the proposed purpose is disputed by the Kravitz and the trust. The opposition letter included a letter from EcoMaps LLC. Michelle Ford, PWS, CWB, CESSWI of EcoMaps LLC raised several concerns. 1. Potentially inaccurate wetland boundaries, impact calculations, and permitting jurisdiction. It was recommended that the inland wetland boundary be redelineated, as the original submission relied on wetland flagging from 17 years ago. Less impactful alternatives available. Number 2, recommendations included utilization of existing paths to access the area or via license at 78 Longshore Lane. 3, loss of wetland functions and values. Concern was raised regarding the removal of any mature trees. 4, inland wetland application item 23E, unique habitat. While the property was not located within a natural diversity database mapped habitat for state-listed rare species or critical habitat, concern was raised that the applicant didn't identify resources listed in the 2313 Plan of Conservation and Development. 5. Inland wetland application item 14, purpose and description of proposed activity. Concern is raised as to the extent of restoration proposed. Number 6, inland wetland application item 20G, recreational resources. Concern is raised that the application does not describe or show the proximity to the town of Madison Surf Club. The Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency requested that the applicant engage a soil scientist to delineate the wetland boundaries again, as the original submission included wetland delineation from several years, 10+ years ago. Revised plans by John Paul Garcia Associates, PC, dated revised October 30, 2023, were submitted. Wetland delineation on this plan include the original submission and updated flags by William Kenny, which were field located by John Paul Garcia and Associates on October 17, 2023. Additional revisions included location of significant trees in the vicinity of the path, modified the location of the path to avoid significant trees, a reduced width of 6 feet for the proposed path, and identification of the coastal jurisdiction line, EL 3.7. The area of direct wetland impact reduced to 155 square feet. The Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency referred the questions raised regarding the validity of the Conservation Easement Agreement to Land Use Council. Land Use Council, Peter Gelderman of Birch and Moses PC, provided a memo to the agency, which was incorporated into the record. He noted that when this matter was litigated almost 15 years ago, it resulted in a stipulation that was ultimately entered as a judgment by the court. One of the matters that was finally resolved in that litigation was the status of Longshore Lane. It was determined that the road was private, even though the town owes the fee to the land over which the road passes. As a result, the town has no maintenance or other responsibilities with respect to the road. This determination continues to be binding on all parties to the stipulation and their successors because it was recorded and therefore runs with the land. It is unaffected by the lack of subsequent subdivision approval, as it is not a condition precedent to such approval. The stipulation contemplated a series of preconditions that were deemed necessary in order to allow the then owners to subdivide the land. One of the preconditions was the requirement to encumber some of the land with a conservation easement. The easement was executed by Longshore LLC and Shorelands LLC as grantors and by the town of Madison as a grantee. The document was never recorded. The subdivision that was contemplated by the stipulation was never approved by the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission, and the land remains undivided. As a result, in Attorney Gelderman's opinion, The preconditions of that possible subdivision, unless they were perfected or otherwise performed, are a nullity. In other words, they exist only as conditions precedent to the proposed subdivision. Since the conservation easement was never recorded, it was not perfected, and in Attorney Gelderman's opinion, not binding on subsequent purchasers of the land. It can be argued that it was binding on Longshore LLC and Shorelands LLC since they were parties to it, but since it was never recorded, it does not run with the land. The analysis continues because in section 7.11A, the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency regulations define a conservation restriction as instrument executed by or on behalf of an owner of the land. There's no question that the conservation easement was executed. A possible effect of this results from the language in section 7.11C of the regulations that requires notice of an application to be sent to the holder of the restriction by certified mail at least 60 days to filing an application. This provision was meant to ensure that the holder of a restriction is given ample time to comment on an application prior to it being heard. The notice provision doesn't have a significant meaning when the holder of the restriction is the town and the application is made to a town agency. Additionally, this agency has the discretion to hear and decide applications even when there is a technical flaw in the application process where no prejudice is shown. The failure to provide notice is not fatal. The agency notes that the applicant notified the town of the hearings as evidenced in the certificates of mailing as the town owns land adjacent to the subject property. Section 10.8 of the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency regulations allows the holder of the restriction to provide proof to the agency that the application will violate the restriction. The agency has reviewed the record, consulted with Land Use Council, and determined that even though the conservation easement agreement was executed, it was never perfected, and in fact, the purpose for the easement to protect certain lands from development as part of a proposed subdivision never came to fruition because the subdivision never happened. This application does not violate the spirit or intent of the easement. In fact, the whole point of the path is to allow the applicant to maintain their vacant open space. The agency will therefore consider the application on the merits to determine whether the proposed activities will have an adverse impact on an inland wetland or watercourse. The Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency has considered the application, supporting materials, and all documents and testimony entered into the record. The agency understands that their decision must be a determination supported by substantial evidence. The revised proposal to restore the previously disturbed area, which reduces the width of the access path from 10 to 6 feet wide and avoids significant trees, causes no adverse impact to the adjacent inland wetland system. The applicant's professionals, in our opinion, adequately depicted the existing conditions of the inland wetlands and appropriate recommendations for how the applicant can take steps to minimize impacts in both short and long terms to the wetland. John Paul Garcia, PE, designed an alternative plan which incorporates all of the agency's concerns. Resolution regarding regulated activity. The Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency authorizes the regulated activity as shown on plans entitled Map Showing Proposed Trail Across Property of LSL LLC, Longshore Lane, Madison, Connecticut, by John Paul Garcia and Associates, PC, dated revised October 30, 2023, with the following conditions of approval. 1. The Inland Wetland Agency's agent shall be notified at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of any regulated activity. 2. At all times during site work and until soil areas are stabilized, the applicant shall install and maintain erosion and sediment control measures such as fabric filter fence, staked hay bales, or other measures deemed necessary by the agency's agent to prevent erosion and sedimentation impacts to the wetlands and watercourses. Erosion control and soil stabilization measures shall comply with the approved plan and the guidelines as established in the Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sediment Control 2002. The location of the filter fabric fencing, as shown on the approved site development plan, shall serve as the limit of construction activities. 3. that no stockpiles be permitted within the 100-foot upland review area during construction activities, and any unused material will be removed from the site. 4. In the event that the applicant secures legal access to the land via agreement with 78 Longshore Lane, this regulated activity would no longer be required and the permit would become null and void. All work and all regulated activities conducted pursuant to this authorization shall be consistent with the terms and conditions of this permit. Any structures, excavation, deposition of fill, obstructions of flow, encroachments, or other regulated activities not specifically identified and authorized herein shall constitute a violation of this permit and may result in permit modification, suspension, or revocation. In the event that any additional wetland or watercourse regulated activities are required as a result of other agency permitting to support the proposed activity, the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency reserves the right to reconsider the proposed regulated activity and may require modifications to minimize the impact to wetland resources. This permit shall be valid for a period of 5 years. Permit extensions may be authorized in accordance with CT General Statutes 22A-36 through 22A-45 inclusive. The Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency renders this decision in accordance with the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations based on the following consideration. A, the revised proposal to restore the previously disturbed area and create a mulch access path with a reduced width from 10 to 6 feet wide and avoidance of significant trees causes no adverse impact to the adjacent inland wetland system. That's it. All right, so that was our
Good.
motion. If everyone's still awake out there.
I second.
And so, is there any discussion? Anybody want to add anything to that?
I think you said it all.
Yeah, I said so much. Okay, all right. Well, all in favor of approving application 23-69 Longshore Lane, raise your hands. Say aye.
Approved.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Great. Okay. We are done with that application. All right, so our next application is 23-71 132 Summerhill Road. This is the regulated activity to for a single family home with associated improvements and proposed in-ground pool within a 100-foot upland review area. And we had received this at the previous meeting. We can act on this tonight. Looks like we've got someone from the applicant.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant. Thank you for not joining as a panelist. I was just going to thank you for not putting the video on, but that's okay.
Oh, I just did. Where'd he go? Did I lose him?
I know.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so this application is very similar to a previously applied for application. This is lot 2 of a 3-lot subdivision on Summerhill. I'm sure you're all aware of the lots. Aaron, if you want to or if you would be so kind as to put the map on the screen there, I'd appreciate it.
Got it.
So we're keeping everything outside 50 feet. We're on the top of it's a relatively flat area, and then it drops off rather steeply to a rather wide wetlands, and then it's another 100 feet or so to the Hammonasset River. And if you can zoom in a bit, I did receive a staff letter today, and those comments are addressed on this plan. The major one was putting in the 5-foot buffer, and that's that green strip on the eastern side of the property. That dark dash line, that's the silt fence, and that essentially runs, the closest point is 50 feet where the pool is, but then it diverges quite a bit from the 50-foot review. It's not a 50-foot review, but just 50-foot demarcation. The actual 100-foot review goes back the back portion of the house. It runs through there. 90% of the house is outside the 100-foot review, where a majority of the lawn would be. The septic system is outside the 100-foot review. The stormwater collection system for the leaf gutters is for the gutters is over the 100-foot. The stockpile areas are outside the 100-foot. And there is a note on the bottom that there will be a 3-year review process once the plantings are in place. I believe that's the note number, note number 33 on the plan, the bottom left, it's in red. That stipulates there's a 3-year monitoring program. The plantings will be the same as what was approved on lot 1. And that's essentially it. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Any questions from the agency?
No.
So just to be clear, so those plantings, nothing is really happening in the yard outside of that green strip.
Correct. There was, well, actually, I would say, Hilo, the disturbed area would be that where that black silt fence line is. So I would imagine anything else would be, just for the grading of the septic system. But there will be no additional activity beyond that green buffer. Correct. Down to the south. Yeah.
Right. That green strip that you have kind of.
Yes,
going around.
correct. Correct.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And that should be made clear in the approval also.
Yes.
You want to make sure that, to enforce that, I guess is my point.
Yes. Are there, okay, so very quiet out there. So there's no
I don't have
question. Okay. Well, if you have looked at the staff report, there's a draft resolution. I'll entertain a motion to, approve this, and we can second that, and then we can look at the draft resolution and see if we need to modify anything.
Okay, I'll move that we approve application 2371, 132 Summer Hill Road.
Okay. I'll second. All right. Okay. So if you see on the draft resolution, we've got some of our standard language in there about being notified, soil and erosion and sedimentation control measures, no stockpiling. And then there is after that a paragraph on the agency recognized that there's a current corrective action on this property with a deadline of May 21, 2024. I guess my question, Aaron, Maria, would be, is that language sufficient to have it, to make sure that all of that corrective action happens, which I assume since it's on the plans now and that there's a corrective action that needs to be done. Do we need to say anything? Do we need to add it as a 4th condition, or is that sentence enough?
I mean, I feel that it's fine in there because I thought about doing it as a condition, but it already is action. And it's noted on the site plan that it's a condition from the violation. So, I mean, that's up to you. If you want to change it, we can.
As long as it's an enforceable, obviously, as long as it's on the plans and we've got a deadline and we're documenting, I guess that's fine.
Seems like.
Yeah, my thought is that the one condition is listed on the plan. I read that corrective action that all of the conditions should be listed on the plan, including the deadline for planting. That's completely separate enforcement action, which is, in my opinion, better to be separate and not linked to a permit. A permit is an optional activity where the corrective action is required. So I think, yes, the property owner's submitting a regulated activity permit, and you could, check both boxes, I guess, by including the conditions. Rather than submitting a separate plan for the corrective action, this plan can list all of the requirements of the corrective action. And we can just use that same plan to satisfy the permit and the corrective action. I read the plan today to only have the one note. I mean, it shows the planting plan, but it doesn't have unless I missed it, it doesn't have the deadline for planting that buffer, does it?
Actually, it looked like it was
Hold on, I'm going to look
May
at it.
21st, 2023. So I mean that passed already. So I thought that date that was on
Oh, it should say 2024.
24,
right,
not
that's right. That's what I'm
2023.
saying. So
That
yeah,
should be
so
corrected.
yeah, that should be corrected. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying, Aaron, that all of the conditions of the corrective action should be included on the site plan?
They should be in the notes on a site plan. That was the fourth,
That's
wasn't
the
that
fourth condition,
that was
right?
the fourth item of the corrective action, is that all of these corrective actions be noted on a site plan.
Okay.
On the site plan, which we have parts of them, and the buffer area is on the plan, but not the exact language of all of the.
Right, and the monitoring is on the plan also, which is
Yes,
a
that I
key
saw and
element
read too.
of that. That's why we can certainly scan those notes on our plan and get a revised copy if you want to make that a condition.
I
But
thought the planting plan was on here too.
yeah, the planting plan
The
is
plan
on.
is on there, right?
Yeah,
There
I just felt that last note saying that there's a 3-year monitoring period would ensure that, and report to the commission or to the wetlands enforcement officer would be sufficient. But that's okay. Whatever you decide is fine.
Well, what's important is that, I mean, the plantings have to get in this spring, and so if the construction activities take longer than that, you have to know, at least you finalize the planting portion of the corrective action.
Right, so there is no date
Now
on
to get in.
that. Yeah, we could certainly put the date on there. Absolutely right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I agree. That we can do.
Okay, so
I don't know if you have room. There's so many notes on that plan. I've never
Well,
seen so many notes.
Aaron, that's exactly what I was. I don't. I can't guarantee you could read the text.
You
but
might need a separate septic sheet. I don't know. It might be getting crazy.
Yeah.
okay, so it sounds like our modification to the conditions would be to add that all the conditions of the corrective action be noted on the site plan,
Including the date.
including May 21st, 2024.
24, the correct date. Yes.
Correct date. Yeah. Okay. So that will be our amendment to this draft resolution. And I'm assuming because do we need to read it? Can someone share that? We don't need to read the whole thing, do we? I've used that.
It's not a public hearing. I'm good with skipping it, by the way.
Okay, so we have we've had a motion and a second to approve this. We've had discussion to amend the conditions to make sure all the corrective actions are listed on the site plan as notes. Are there any other amendments to this draft resolution before we vote?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand, say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, great. All right. So
Thank
we
you
approve.
very much. Aaron, before you send me out into the dark, I know you're going to be in receipt of an application that we're presenting, and it's a fairly complex application. So if I would just be able to explain it, or maybe you can explain exactly what's on the plan, this will save a lot of time. There's a lot to look at on that plan. I just wanted to make sure that the commission reads some of the salient points on that. That's all.
You're talking about Neck Road, right?
Oh,
Yes.
next row. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well,
That'll be up to you. So I'll get out of the video, and if you want me on, let me know.
okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Okay. So we are down to receipts. So we have, but we still have lots to go. Don't get too excited there. So we've got 24-04, 64 Surf Club Road. This is an application from the town to reconstruct exchange field with improved grading, new sod, improved soil conditions, underground electrical, and an upgraded irrigation system within the 100-foot review area. This also was a big application package. So it's received. This is where we decide, do we want a site walk? Is it a significant activity? I think we want a site walk.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I think staff would probably recommend a site walk just so that you can kind of see the lay of the land. All work is within the upland. This is a multi-jurisdictional project. We'll also go for coastal site plan application following inland wetlands review, as there are also tidal wetlands in the vicinity for the property as well. So we don't have these set walk dates anymore for this year. So we would circulate some possible available Saturday mornings and see what best works for everybody.
Okay. And right. So I didn't see anything. They're not filling wetlands or directly impacting wetlands, right? It is, as you said, all in the upland.
This is all within the upland area, within existing field area, essentially. Yeah, I mean, the description is pretty thorough and accurate. So
okay, good.
Some utilities and regrading.
Okay, so yeah, we'll do a site walk for that. So then we have application 24-06, 241 Neck Road. This is the water line. So Aaron, I have a question for that. I have a quick question. In one of the documents submitted, it was I can't remember, statutes. I don't know what is the label?
Okay.
And it's statutes. And then on part B, I assume this has to do something with the water company. It says the utility or property owner can maybe granted an exception. So is that, and it goes on to explain under what circumstances. So could the property owner ask for an exception? It looked like they could.
Yes, those are questions, I guess, and as Chuck had indicated, this came before you before as an application and was withdrawn. And I think, and I have to say, I haven't reviewed all of the information, but this is a statute regarding, how access to a water utilities, basically water and electric, I believe, can be serviced to a property. But essentially that you need to own a fee strip to do so. And as this property is proposed and service for water and electric to this property were shown in the subdivision map, and the regulated activity permit showed that those utilities coming up through a right of way over the adjacent properties. And so the feedback we're hearing is that Eversource and the water company are not allowing that. There is an opportunity, I believe, for appeal of that process, but I think they need to exhaust their other options available. One of which is what is proposed before you of this crossing of roughly, I think the last time I looked, 200 feet or so of an inland wetland for water main and electric line. So that being said, I guess going through the details of the application, I would assume, so the agency has walked the site before as part of the regulated activity to build the house. Really, we stayed in the upland. As you can recall, the wetland is very dense, densely vegetated. So you'd probably, I would think you'd want to get out there again and look at it. Now, having this proposal through the wetland before you. And you may want to consider third-party consultant as you look at potential impacts to this wetland system.
Yeah, that's what I was, I mean, it's a non-trivial.
And a significant activity, sorry. I thought that was
I was gonna say it's a significant impact. I think, yes, I mean, walking it for a house and thinking about that is one thing, especially when, you know, that the wetland was kind of carved out and protected, you know, going through it and digging through it is a completely different type of application. So yes, I think definitely a site walk. And other people can say, I mean, I do think we would want third party, and it probably is a significant activity given the disturbance to this wetland. But
I
go ahead.
agree on all 3 points.
Okay.
I
So-
was curious, for utilities like this, would this typically be included in the initial application? I was just curious why this is being done after the fact.
Oh,
I can't speak to why that was not addressed at the time of regulated activity. I think that's a good question for the applicant. As
Okay.
part of your review process.
Okay.
Other, I know we have to look at our significant activity reasons, but does anybody else have other, does anybody not want to have it as a significant activity? Or are you okay with it being a significant activity? Deemed a significant activity per our regulations, which I'm pulling up.
Yes.
Are you pulling those up, or do you want us to?
I'm looking quickly.
I can grab to go through
All right.
reasons.
Yeah,
Is it? I have it open, but
it's 7 point, is it 7? I think it's 7.
That's
So just-
application requirements, isn't it? Hold on a second.
Oh, wait. I've got,
I think it's the
yeah,
definition.
it's 7.6, right? It involves a significant activity. Oh, it's designed as defined.
Yep. So it's the definitions of significant activity.
Okay.
I can share
That's
that.
section 2.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oops, too big, sorry.
Okay.
So these are the 7
Right.
sections where that can what could be considered a significant activity, which may have a major effect or significant activity impact, excuse me, on wetlands or watercourses. Any deposition or removal of material in or from a regulated area, which will or may have a perceptible effect on the regulated area or on another part of the inland wetland or watercourses system, whether at or outside the area for which the activity is proposed. Activity which perceptibly changes the natural channel or may inhibit the natural dynamics of a watercourse. 3, any activity which perceptibly diminishes the natural capacity of an inland wetland or watercourse to support desirable fisheries, wildlife, other biological life, prevent flooding, water supply, assimilate waste, facilitate drainage, provide recreation or open space, or perform other functions, or any activity which is likely to cause or has a potential to cause measurable turbidity, siltation, or sedimentation in a wetland or water course, any activity which causes measurable diminution of flow of a natural water course or groundwater levels of the regulated area, any activity which is likely to cause or has the potential to cause pollution of a wetland or water course, or 7, any activity which damages or destroys unique wetland or water course areas, or such areas having demonstrable scientific or educational value.
Okay.
Any numbers?
Yeah, I mean, so number, let me see,
One.
well, number 4,
1, 5, 6, and 7, maybe
1, 4.
on 4. Yep.
yeah, I think 4 too.
Yep.
Yep.
So 1, 4,
6.
6, and 7.
6 and 7.
That works.
Okay. And then did you want me to go to, what was it? The next section, Kay?
So it's section 7.6.
6, right? I'm sorry to be scrolling fast, but just moving along.
I
Yes.
had, oh, okay.
Of what information you'd like included. So basically, this is what's included as part of your significant activity review, and you have the discretion to excuse any of these sections, A through G. So it's really, if you feel that any of those could be excluded, I would call those out now. Otherwise, assume that the applicant should address all of them.
I think all of them are fine, but does anybody
Right.
have?
No, I agree with that, Kayla.
I agree with that. And also just highlighting E when it talks about alternatives.
Yeah,
Definitely want to focus on that.
yeah. Especially, because there is a clause in the statute saying that if there's a hardship, I guess the hardship would be trying to get this through, that they can let them figure out a different way to do this instead of crashing through, 200 feet of wetland.
Agreed.
Okay.
So that's 2 sidewalks.
So, Chuck Mandel had asked prior, like when he submitted this, about wanting to, apparently it's impassable. It's really overgrown. And he wanted to see, about knocking it down. And I said, let's just wait to see, don't touch it until we decide if we're doing a walk. So I don't know what you want to do about that. I haven't been there in a while, been driven by it. I know it's really overgrown. It's probably taller than me, but I don't know if there's anything they can do about, I don't want to say they can't mow it, but maybe difficulty getting through.
Getting through to the actual wetland?
Walking through the
Walking
wetland.
through.
It's densely vegetated,
Then,
so
yeah.
likely you'll be in the upland looking. I mean, you could take a look at it now and see.
Well,
if
I'm
you'd
not
like.
sure we want them to
Disturb it.
disturb
Right,
it.
right. That's why I told them, don't touch it until we see what they want to walk it and what you want to do about it. So
I think that defeats the whole purpose. I think we should go out and look. I will bring waders, and try to bushwhack through and see what we can see. But I think it's still helpful just to understand, even if we can't see exactly where everything goes, we'll still be able to, if we have a sense of the spatial scale and where it is going through the wetland, that will be helpful. I mean, they have to flag that anyway, or some of it, right? Without theoretically chopping things down.
So to stake the access way, yeah, so I guess, and we haven't been out there with Chuck or anybody to kind of look at that from the road moving back, and maybe that's better, Chuck, if you can, here, well, Chuck, I did just allow you to talk if you wanted to unmute, but you guys aren't able to get in there?
Yeah, yeah, Chuck Mandel. So it's so dense with the multi-floor rows. We did stake it, so you could, if you stood on Neck Road, we could put a story pole on the far side, so you could get a sense of the line that it's going to go through. My idea of was just to have a mini excavator just flatten up to the edge and come back. That's all. Not into the wet area, but just up to the edge. It'd be maybe another 20 feet. Otherwise, believe me, I've tried getting through several times with a machete. We do have a small chainsaw, but it's not worth it. So to do it like that. That's all. But you can see it just for perspective. We staked it already. And like I said, we could put a story pole on the far side and you could stand on the Neck Road and look and see where exactly we're going. And there were other, and the statutes are another thing but we'll get into that with the application. But just so you can walk it, that's all.
Okay.
So like I said, if you want, I could have a small machine, just go up to the edge and then pull back. And it's all invasive. There is a functions and values report that we put in the report already. And I believe, like I said, that will, by late spring, you'll never know anything was there. Thank you, Erin.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. The only other question that we have, well, I guess if you wanted to just confirm no site disturbance until the walk and see what you can see from the road, rather than getting an excavator in there.
Yeah, that feels a little counterproductive in a way to smash a path in. I mean, I get that. And I know that's very overgrown, but I don't know if it makes sense to get a machine in there so we can do a sidewalk. That feels, I don't know. Doesn't seem like
Well,
that's do.
I guess the other thing to consider is that if you're looking to have a third party consultant help review that, you may get some guidance from them as well as far as what kind of access you're looking, or is needed to the area to do a proper assessment. So you went through the significant
Yes, and we said,
definition.
Yep, A through G is fine. Oh, yes, we did the definition, and then for 7.6, we said all A through G.
Yep.
So we'll schedule a site walk, and I do think a third party is probably warranted.
Right.
So with respect to your consultant, you're looking for third party wetland consultant?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we want to understand better the impacts on the wetland since it's 200 feet, right?
Okay. And you have 65 days from the date of receipt, which is this evening, to schedule a public hearing. Typically, when we have the process of going out for third-party proposals, staff would recommend pushing that hearing date out the full 65 days to allow for you to engage with a consultant at your next meeting and then begin some of the review process ahead of the hearing.
Yes, I think that sounds good.
Amen.
So that would be April 1st.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Anybody want to wrap that up into a nice motion? All of them?
I don't know whether I'll remember all of them, but I'll make a motion regarding application 24-06 241 Neck Road, that we do a site walk and that we schedule the public hearing for the April meeting. I forget the date. What else did I forget? Was there
That
anything
we're deeming it a significant activity.
deeming significant activity under Article 2? And I forget 4, 1, 4, and 6, I think.
1,
1,
4,
4,
6, 7.
6, 7.
1, 4, 6, and 7. And that we require the applicant to provide A through G from section 7.6.
That's great. I'll second. Are there any other comments or anything else that we missed that we should add? Oh, I don't even remember. Did you add that we're gonna ask for a third party?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay. That we'll ask for a
and we'll
third party consultant.
ask the applicant to ask for a third party review on behalf of the town.
To look at the wetlands.
To third party wetland scientist to work on behalf of the town.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything to our motion? All right. All in favor, raise your hands, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Abstaining? Great. It's unanimous. Okay. Heading on to violations. We have 129 Green Hill Road, map 55, lot 7. This is one where we've talked to the applicant. And they had Michelle Ford go out, and hopefully you guys got to see the report and identify trees. And there's a staff report on recommendations, and we have the applicant with us tonight.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. This is Jessica. I don't know if you can see me or not. We also have Michelle Ford on the call. So hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should be able to see you too, I think, right? Now?
Okay. Maybe it's something on my end. Oh, there we go.
Here you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm scared to do stuff and because I don't want to get disconnected. Michelle Ford should also
And
be.
Jessica, you said, oh, Michelle is joining too. She's coming over too. I just saw her.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay.
So we again worked with Michelle Ford to do the 3 items that the agency required of us from the January meeting. So to document the DBH and species and do provision of a map and list of suggestions for mitigation and restoration measures. And we submitted that over to Maria. It was January 26th, just a couple days after Michelle came to the property on January 24th. So hopefully the agency has had time to review that.
Yep.
Great. So what questions or what should I speak to next?
Well, so it looks like just to summarize, it looks like the mitigation that Michelle recommended, and of course she can speak up if she wants, is to remove the log and brush piles While the ground's still frozen, hopefully we will have more winter and not turn into spring already. There was a recommendation to remove trees, large trees from the pond and to monitor for and remove invasive vegetation within a 25 to 50-foot buffer for at least 2 years, and monitoring for reestablishment by native vegetation this spring with this inspection to reassess and determine. So those are some of the mitigation measures that were kind of suggested. And then we have, I guess I can just run through this. I mean, we have a draft resolution kind of pretty much following along to some extent on those. So I guess if there were questions on your part, or if there's any discussion or any questions from the agency members, and I see Ms. Ford is here as well, which is great. Oh, wait, she was here. Oh, there she is. Oh, yes, go ahead. You moved on the screen.
Sorry, I'm jumping around here. So if you don't mind, I know it's getting late. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think, this is somewhat of a complex situation. Just given that, with the tree removal and the extent of the tree removal, the mitigation is not very straightforward. It's not like you can really easily go in and replant, a bunch of 12, 14, 16-inch diameter mature hardwood trees. At least not practically. So replacement in kind really wasn't feasible. Also, there's not a lot of data on what this pond looks like otherwise, and there's not a lot of data in terms of the depth and the nutrient loading and things like that. So some assumptions were made, which I stated in the report, that it's likely a fairly eutrophic pond, right? It accepts a lot of overland flow from the surrounding developed residential areas. So I expect that there's some algae growth. I expect there's a high nutrient load. Ms. Joseph had explained that they had looked at installing a fountain to help, promote some healthier conditions in the pond. So I guess what I'm getting at is just know that my recommendations for mitigation I was trying to get to something that was reasonable to address some of the bigger threats that I could see out there through the tree removal. I think leaving the stumps in place is absolutely necessary. I don't think any stumps should be pulled. I would expect in the spring that a lot of them would sprout. A lot of the woody shrubs were also cut, and I think that those are going to recover somewhat quickly, especially with the removal of some of the canopy. But as I stated too, this does open up the door for invasive vegetation to kind of come in and say, oh, we have all this suitable habitat right now. Let's take advantage of this. So I think that keeping those invasives at bay while allowing the native community to restore itself is probably going to be a good start. The other thing that was challenging with this site, and you'll see it in the site pictures, particularly like photo 3 and photo 7 that I tried to convey, was the identification to species based on a 2 to 3 foot tall stump was really not feasible. Bark characteristics can differ unless you get easily identifiable species, like a beech. But when you're looking at, let's say, sugar maple or red maple, they can be somewhat variable. So I didn't want to make assumptions on the species. So that's why you'll see in there, unidentified hardwood. The other thing was that a lot of the trees had been kind of relocated. They weren't dropped in place where you could say, oh, here's the stump, and then here's the tree that stump belongs to. So just wanted to address why it's not as kind of clear cut as maybe we'd assumed previously. But again, if you have questions, I'm here, to discuss. We can go from there.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Ford? Okay.
I guess, I don't know if we shared any of the staff comments with Jessica or Michelle, but I kind of anticipated the agency's reaction, I think, in conversation with Maria to your recommendations, Michelle, that and previously the agency has looked to have some type of restorative planting plan and not necessarily just kind of letting go for at least a season to see what happens. And so it was our recommendation, I think, to kind of break this up and your first steps of going in and removing the trees during those, hopefully, if we cool down, that those could be safely removed without having to be cut in place. But to have the trees in the wetland and buffer area removed, as well as the trees pulled from the pond. And then once those are out, I guess our question was, is it worthwhile to have an additional evaluation, especially of the pond, and looking as we're getting into the spring, some type of functions and values, like, getting where it's more accessible now, and the surrounding area, so that we could better come up with some type of restorative plan, whether it's letting some go, and see what comes back as far as the woody vegetation, and then perhaps some additional recommendations for trees. Typically, the agency has not just left stumps for regrowth, and they're looking for something more than that, given the amount of trees that have been removed from this site.
Yep.
So any thoughts on that? That's sort of the direction we're leaning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for Ms. Joseph, but I agree. I think I'm kind of in between here a little bit, being hired by the property owner. I don't want to make recommendations like, oh, we could do a full limnological study, we could do this, we could do that, right? So it's kind of like what's really reasonable, where do we start? And I think to make too many assumptions and make full mitigation recommendations at this time of year may be less effective than during the spring or summer. So I think a planting plan could certainly be effective, but it should be based on what's actually going to grow, right? Because let's say that only 50% of the woody shrubs that were cut come back. You're going to want to go ahead and plant some more. But if it's a higher percentage and you have good, regeneration and bank stabilization, not that there's much erosion, but if you're getting that shading in, you don't need to plant as many of those. It'll be interesting to see if and how the trees sprout. And I think there's going to be a good seed source in the ground as well, and maybe some root sprouts for trees to come in. If you're looking to plant larger trees, that's obviously a possibility as well. It's really up to your discretion. I think you could also do some, small flowering shrubs, maybe do some, native wetland plants to kind of enhance, the wetland vegetation. So that could certainly be done. My recommendation really would just be to wait at least until the spring and see you have a better handle on what's actually growing out there. Because the other thing is you could see, oh, there's a ton of invasives that are really creeping in now that this, canopy has opened up. So you'd want to kind of make sure that those are kept at bay and then do a more of a comprehensive planting plan based on what's already growing.
Okay. So that to me seems consistent with
That's right.
Matt's comments, but aside from, I guess if agency members have any other desires, at this point for the next appropriate step.
Well, yeah, I think and I guess, Michelle, part of your recommendation in removing log and wood chip piles was just because there's so much other cover there, which is fine. I guess we'll have to, we'll have to look at the weather. Removing trees. So in the staff resolution, I think it should be, I don't think all trees need to be removed. Some trees are fine. That happens. Trees fall in ponds. Maybe not under, maybe not as much as there were. So I think it's fine to take out some of the trees, but I think it's also fine to leave some. as well. We can talk about, that. But yes, Aaron, to your point, I think you do anticipate, what you have in the draft resolution is that, we'll look in the spring at engaging someone, or if Michelle wants, the owner would do this, to look at what's happening and what the next steps. But I think there are next steps. I don't think, I don't think we're just, I think it's likely invasives will come in. I think we'll probably want to do some initial planting. That's a pretty cleared area. So I think we'll want to do something, but assessing in the spring is fine, although getting near to spring, which is not.
So one other option, if I may, with the brush pile removal, when waiting to winter, ideally frozen ground would be best, but if that can't be done, then the piles can kind of be chopped, in place, and it's a lot more work, but manually kind of removed. Working with a licensed contractor coming in from maybe a different area, they could span. There's a little kind of the water course. They could span that easily and drag it out. I know Ms. Joseph here is probably like cringing, but I think it would be more important just to get some of those brush piles out. As tedious as it may be, there's quite the abundance. And that's what I tried to show on one of the figures in the report too, just so that you can see just how many there are. And I'm all for some brush piles for, wildlife habitat and whatnot, but there's just a lot. And I think it's going to be to a point of detriment where you're going to start to have invasives grow within those piles and it'd be kind of a seed source. And it's a little bit much. And in terms of the pond too, I thought about that as like structure for fish and aquatics and whatnot. But if you'll look too at which one, photo 3 shows it fairly well that it's a little excessive with what's in the pond. I think leaving 1 or 2 stems here or there for habitat or basking turtles is fine, but there's going to be a little bit of nuance to that, but I think it would be best to have some of those, especially where it's a little bit more dense in the pond.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But I don't think all of them have to come out.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So for the agency members, any other questions or comments? You've seen the draft resolution is, we'll do a motion and move forward. Are there any other questions you have or anything else that you want to see?
Go ahead. Sorry, Lee.
No, that's all right, Anna. In the resolution, are we going to have to designate which one stay and which one's coming up? I mean, it sounds, I don't have I've been having trouble pulling up the resolution, so I don't have it in front of me, but it sounds like I don't know whether we're giving the applicant clear direction as far as what needs to come out and what needs to stay, I guess.
So the draft resolution is pretty clear. It says if the logs and brush can't be removed, then they can be cut in place and removed manually. So that's kind of clear. There's a date of March 1st.
Yep.
The cut trees within the pond can be removed and placed beyond the regulated activity. I would modify that just to say, leave a couple in.
Sorry. Can I just may I ask a question? I think it was Aaron that alluded to maybe staff comments, and I wasn't sure if that is that something that happens like behind the scenes, or was I supposed to read something that I missed?
No. No. We just got them today. It just helps us as we formulate a motion, and she's just put it up on the screen.
Okay.
So we would go through this. So, I'm kind of previewing a motion, and then we would go through this and have discussion. But you can see she's put that up on the screen.
Got it. And for some reason, it's like super. Oh, maybe I can.
It is. Maria, can you zoom in on that?
I think I'm able to do it too.
Hold on.
You're not the only one.
Nope.
To try and help answer Lee's question, could we add in text that says, under direction of a PWS or biologist?
That's what I
Okay.
was gonna suggest as well.
Which
As
I
far
think,
as-
Michelle, you are a PWS and biologist as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
How come I can't?
Might be the way that the screen is sharing.
You know what? It's because it's sharing from my second screen and not my, which I think is why.
So I guess, well, we could just kind of go through them. Number one was that the log, brush, and wood chip piles should be removed and placed beyond the regulated area or taken off-site no later than March 1st. Dragging of heavy logs or branches shall not be conducted when the ground is soft and impact. Oh, that's a little better.
Yep.
A little blurry. I don't know if that's my eyes or is it getting late? Where the ground is soft and impact to wetland resources could be exacerbated. If the logs and brush can't be removed during, while the ground's frozen, they can be cut in place and removed manually or through a machine as Michelle had recommended, and that those should be taken outside the wetland boundary. And then the second one, cut trees from the pond shall be removed and placed within beyond the regulated area or taken off-site no later than March 1st, 2024. Those two could be amended, as Anna had said, under the direction of a professional wetland scientist. Or guided by. So as far as which ones should stay within the pond and perhaps if there's an appropriate brush pile to remain within the upland or within that wetland area as well. So that was the more immediate steps. And then following steps 1 and 2, it was recommended that the property owner engage a qualified professional to further assess the impact of tree removal on the pond, specifically focusing on functions and values, biological evaluation as it relates to the clearing activities and opportunities for any restoration. And then again, in conjunction with this, looking at the pond, given the extent of clearing and number of trees removed, the property owner shall engage a qualified professional to develop a restoration plan for that area that includes plantings of appropriate sizes and species of native vegetation and monitoring and removal program for invasives. So the date recommended was March 25th, so that the commission could begin discussing that at your April 1st meeting. Again, if you feel that you want to give it a little more time to let things grow, perhaps initial engaging of a professional to look at the pond and the area could happen for the April meeting, and then further, once we get into the growing season, further recommendation for plantings may follow in May or beyond. That's really at your discretion. Any thoughts on that?
I agree with pushing it back till April.
For item 3, Anna, right?
It's hard to view. I don't know. It's like really hard to view this and then also kind of digest all this really quickly to. Okay, so can you I can't. I'm not able to. There we go. Thanks. The whole number 1. So.
We will send you a copy of this when the agency takes action.
Yeah.
But the first 2 are roughly the are pretty much the recommendations in Michelle's
March
report as far as removing the cut trees and brush from the I guess the question, Anna, you had thought submission for by the end of April of a planting plan for May review. Was that, I didn't quite catch what you had said there, pushing it back.
Yeah, I think the idea was to wait until a little bit of the growing season had kicked in, to wait and see what we have there, and then preparing a mitigation or restoration plan based on the timeframe or spring growth.
Yeah, I think pushing back to the May, pushing that, I think that's number 4, right?
Mhm.
I just push that back a month.
Okay.
Is 3 weeks enough time to get all those trees out of there?
Yeah.
I was questioning that as well.
Yeah,
If
I think
if it's a frozen ground is the requirement, I'm a little nervous because we have so much, it's just all wet back there. But we are not opposed to going back there with a chainsaw and like making them smaller and rolling them out of there. I don't know if that would be more detrimental to this to the area to get it out of the wetlands.
Well, yeah, so for 1 and 2, this is where, and I know we haven't made the motion, but we will probably amend this to, have special wetland scientists give you advice on when to do this and what to do at a given time. I agree, March 1st is shockingly coming up faster than it should.
Not
Uh,
far off. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think, dragging, you can do some by hand. Probably not getting the stuff, not the stuff out of the pond. That's going to be non-trivial. At least a couple of those trees are pretty big. if I recall.
Yeah, yeah. So dragging of heavy logs or branches should not be conducted on the ground. Okay.
So if I may, I think the first step maybe, Jess, is just to find a landscaper that could do this work and provide them with this documentation. Like, listen, this is a highly sensitive area. Here's what we need to do. The work will be overseen. How do you propose to do it? But, this is what we need to do and what equipment do you have to do it? It's also possible if they could park on the side of Wildwood. That way they can kind of stay out of the wetlands that are a little bit further south of the pond.
Yeah.
There's also access that way. But again, I think it's really going to depend on the contractor that you're able to get for what they can do. I mean, it's possible they'll just have a winch and be able to drag some of this stuff out, but they're going to probably want to bring a chipper on site, and where they put that, how they get stuff. So also if they have any matting, that they could put down, that they could drag across if the ground isn't frozen. It's really, again, and I don't know if the agency has any recommendations on landscapers that have worked in town in wetland areas. But I think it's going to need a soft cut.
Right. And typically a licensed tree professional would be, I think, more appropriate than a landscaping company. Just because of the sheer size of some of these trees, and the sensitivity of the area.
Charlie Islin would be a recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, really, we wouldn't be able to give you a specific recommendation. I think what the commission can do is say that that you shall engage your professional wetland scientist to be involved in that process with your hired contractor to ensure that the proposed methodology for removal is not going to cause any additional impacts to the wetland area.
Right. Okay. Noted.
Okay. So
then step 3, just like what specifically is focusing on functions and values? Because
that's a standard way of evaluating wetlands that a professional wetland scientist would be able to do. There's a whole procedure on how to evaluate functions and values of wetlands.
Okay. Michelle, the impacts and summary, no, we didn't, this was not something that we already did.
Correct. So this was something that I kind of brought up a little earlier on, that more comprehensive wetlands report, right? Had some of these pieces in it. And so what the commission is just, it's a standard methodology that looks at, how that wetland functions and what are its values. So that's really what item 3 is looking at. And so you take what those functions and values are and you look at how they were impacted by the tree removal. And then you make recommendations on how those impacts can be mitigated to help restore, if not enhance, the functions and values.
Got it. Okay. This was the original proposal, right, that you sent and was like, okay, this is what the agency is asking me for. We'll do this. Is that? Got it. Okay. Yes. Awesome. All right. Okay.
So I guess our next step then for the agency is, and of course, Jessica, you'll get a copy of this, is to, although I think we're amending it a little bit, is to have a motion and vote and then get, this is kind of the next step forward in addressing, how to move forward with this violation. So for the agency members, we've kind of, do you have any other questions or comments, or do you feel like we could move on to a motion?
Well, I'm still wondering about that March 4th date. Are we going, I mean, March 1st, is that?
That's what I mean. So I just want to move forward and then we can modify, right?
That's fine. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, so we can, okay, so I'll just make a motion that we approve this draft resolution with these directives that we will then modify as we go through. Or so because they're already written out, I think it'd be easier to modify them.
That sounds like a good plan. Second.
Okay. All in favor? No, wait, we're not voting. It's just seconded. It's getting late. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that March 1st might be a little early. I'm agreeing March 1st, it's a little early.
Yeah.
So I think for these two first ones, we can modify that to what, mid-March?
I'm gonna say March 15th.
Yeah, March 15th.
Yep.
And to also amend those two to add that there should be a professional wetland scientist overseeing or giving input on how those activities take place. Because it is it is a sensitive area. And that includes for the cut trees. I would nominate that we, a couple of the medium sized or whatever, a couple of those trees, at least one, stay in the pond to provide habitat, not just for turtles, but depending on the branches, spotted salamanders and wood frogs and other amphibians will lay eggs on those, and that provides nice habitat. So we can modify those first two to have a professional wetland scientist kind of oversee and push that back to March 15th and leave 1 or 2 trees in the ponds. For 3 and 4, what we were discussing is that, the meat of that is fine, but the date should be pushed back a month. So move that to, April 25th for review at our May 1st. It's not May 1st. Our meeting in May.
May 6th.
May 6th. So that would be my recommendation to the agency for for how we would amend this draft resolution. So do
I
they?
agree.
Okay,
Works for me.
okay. And Tom and
Yep.
Joe? Okay. All right. Well, so Aaron, did you get those amendments?
Yes,
Or Maria, somebody? So,
yes.
are we, okay. So
Would you like,
go ahead.
I guess the only question is, the property owner will not return to you should they be in compliance with appropriate removal of brush and trees. They will not be back before you again until your May meeting. Is that
So,
okay?
yes. I mean, I guess it, I mean, it would, I guess I would recommend
We
that
need
the,
a we need a letter or something that the March 15th date is adhered to, I would say.
yeah, or some communication as to why it couldn't be, but
Right.
yes, that there should be communicate. So I guess you can add that as a fifth, that there should be, communication that conditions 1 and 2 were completed by March 15th.
Yeah.
I think that
my
communication will be-
recommendation would be that
Yes.
the property owner notify staff
Yeah, no.
48 hours prior to their scheduled removal, so that we're aware of when it's happening.
Okay, well,
And then report back to you.
that's
Yep.
great. That sounds great.
And so the March 15th is the deadline to remove. Can I get some specifics on like how much do you want to stay for wildlife habitat and how much you want removed, and just leave one tree in the pond, or
Yeah, so we're gonna,
we'll have
yes,
okay.
that's why we have in this motion that we're gonna vote on in a second, that
Okay.
there's a professional wetland scientist that's what we've amended this to, that you're gonna have, that you need to have someone advising you on those questions that you've just asked.
Okay, so Michelle will be my go-to to kind of guide this
You and she
process with a tree professional, licensed tree professional to work out these details. Is that
right? So
okay?
it's just, we're gonna vote on this, and
Yes.
then I want because we're gonna lose our train of thought. All right, so we've amended all of this, and Aaron has all those amendments, and we've added the other amendment that we will, that the applicant will notify staff before 24 hours before, 8 hours before, how many hours?
48.
48 hours before any activity in order to know that it's happening. So those are amendments. So all in favor of this motion as amended, raise your hands, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Abstaining? No. Okay, so yes, so Jessica, you will get an amended view of that motion, and part of that is going to say that there's a professional wetland scientist for conditions 1 and 2 that will help guide how you manage that removal by March 15th.
Okay.
So, of course, if you have questions, you can ask town staff, but that's why we put that in there so that you would have guidance, because it is non-trivial. That's a non-trivial activity. So you'll have guidance. You need to get that guidance, but we've asked that you get that guidance in removing the brush piles and the trees. So do you have any other questions for us?
Not that I can think of right now. This is and this is all okay. It's probably going to fall under maybe Michelle's guidance as well. But there's a part in there of frozen ground. And so, but I
Yeah.
can defer
Yeah.
to
Yep, and that's
Michelle's
right. So that's exactly,
figure out other.
yes. Is it frozen enough? Is it too soggy? That's exactly why we've recommended that you consult with a wetland scientist in doing this. And you know, with his hope for cold weather.
Okay.
So much easier. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for being so helpful and in moving this forward and so responsive, which is helpful. And I'm sure Maria or Aaron will make sure you get a revised copy of this this resolution so that it will help kind of guide your next steps.
Sounds good. Okay. And so I don't see you guys until the May meeting, but just
You do not see us until May.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
No, that's fine. You can come zoom in and but
maybe for fun.
You don't have to see it until May.
Right.
And Jess, if you need staff to come out or meet you on site, if that's helpful to get on the same page with Michelle, to kind of go over which piles are staying, what's not, and in the pond, that's fine. Maria and I are happy to meet you out there so that you have a clear picture of what needs to happen. And even if you just wanted to kind of go through with staff what your proposed methodology is for removing these, if perhaps the ground is softer with matting, things like that, we can do that. That's
okay, great.
So that you don't feel like you're just running off a piece of paper and no communication with staff. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay. All right, thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Okay, so moving right along, we have application 22-36 Race Hill Road. This is one we talked about last month. Another violation. This is where there was a permit for the bridge. And it turned out that the applicant did not follow all of the conditions, and we had an animated conversation. And then go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we probably can wrap this up pretty well because we've had a good response. I don't know. Do you want to lead this conversation, Marie, or do you want me just to sum it up?
No, you could sum it up. We've been out there, Aaron and I, so a couple times and following up with pictures. And I went out there, I think, once more after we met.
Yeah, so
Mike and Eric.
Mr. Rudolph did hire Mike Ott to be his professional to oversee, and report back to you regarding the ENS controls as was noted on your last corrective action when the permit was suspended. And so all of those corrective actions have been met. And Eric Davison met Maria and Mike and I out on the site to evaluate any potential impacts. There was, and his report was included in, agenda materials. Essentially, the area where the machine kind of went through the wetland and crossed the water course, that was reseeded and stabilized with hay, and the ENS controls were reinstalled, the materials and machinery was removed outside of that floodplain area. The cofferdam was improved and raised in height, and the crossing, the temporary crossing mats were reinstalled as well. And essentially the site is now dormant until the allowed working period. The only item that has not been addressed yet, and in conversation with Mike, is the ENS control bond. And Mike did indicate that he would be providing what that linear footage of ENS, of the filter fabric fencing, so that we can calculate what that bond amount would be. And so our recommendation would be to update that deadline to February 15th, which would be later next week, next Thursday, for Mr. Udoff to submit that ENS control bond. And then our recommendation is to allow the site to be dormant and Mike to monitor that over the next 2 months. And the DEP guidelines were work with starting after April 1st. So it's convenient. That's the first night in April and of your meeting. So an opportunity for you to just kind of revisit if you've had a couple months of good reports on the property. Then my thought is that the applicant provide you with the name and contact information of who his construction manager is, who's overseeing the project, so that we have direct contact with them and can avoid any of these problems in the future, and then hopefully reinstate the permit and have the work done in a timely fashion before October again, and finish the project.
Yeah.
So
that sounds great.
Yeah, we thought so. If it goes that way, which I think it will. I think it was unfortunate, the group of, the partnership of, using a friend as a contractor. And I think Mr. Udoff has learned the hard way as far as what is required with this type of application and project. But I do think he has acknowledged that and is on the right track now.
Well, good. Okay, so that was great, and hopefully you all have seen so we need to vote on this draft resolution that Aaron has just outlined, the February 15th to get the financials and to get to continue with an independent soil and erosion control expert to monitor the site. And there's the details in there. So I'll take a motion.
Again, I'm having problems pulling that up.
Well, I can make a motion. So I move that we approve the corrective action in the draft resolution from town staff to submit a financial guarantee for erosion and sedimentation controls in an amount based on the cost of materials and installation of said controls shown on the approved plans, plus 10% contingency, no later than the 15th of February 2024. To continue to engage an independent soil and erosion control expert to monitor soil and erosion controls on site and to conduct inspections at least once a week and within 24 hours at the end of a storm with the rainfall amount of ½ inch or greater, and to submit a report to the inland wetlands agent after each inspection, but not less than once a week, and that the permit remains suspended until April 1st, when the agency will revisit the matter to confirm compliance with steps 1 and 2. So, all in favor of that motion? Oh, wait.
Second.
I need a second. Oh my God, it's getting so late.
Getting delirious.
I didn't even think. All right, so we have a second. Does anybody have any additions to this? Aaron, I think what you said is that you also recommended that they tell you the name of the person that they're hiring. Is that what you?
That's my recommendation. I think that can be addressed in April upon reinstating of the permit.
Okay.
You can add additional, and I think we would add two additional conditions at that time. One would be to continue to engage the independent soil and erosion control specialist throughout the remainder of the project, and then also to provide Maria with the contact information of the
Okay,
contractor.
right, so that we can do that in April. Okay. Nobody wants to amend this. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Great. Passes unanimously. Okay, section 13s. I'm assuming that they all went well. Which is great. We're gonna just move on unless we have to say anything about those, but I'm assuming since they're section 13s and you guys okayed them.
They're in
That's-
good hands. They're in
Yeah,
good
they're in
hands.
good hands. All right.
Yeah,
so-
they're really just there for your reference, so you know what
which is great.
your agent's been doing. And you
So-
do have the right to question them, but highly unlikely.
Yeah, probably not. So correspondence, the Madison Country Club has a pesticide application. Is that that's just for our information?
Again,
Okay,
yep.
They're required to notify you.
okay, so we are duly notified. Great, yes, approval of minutes. I looked through them, I didn't see anything egregious,
Yeah, no, they look straightforward to me.
okay? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from January 8th, 2024?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna just go through these remarks. Thank you to staff for having staff resolutions.
Yep.
That was great. I do want to just highlight, I don't know what happened with the Zoom link for the people for the public hearing, but clearly, I don't know. So I don't know the details, but I think they were unhappy.
So we'll, yeah,
Gotta
we'll
verify.
look at that.
Yeah.
They made it to the hearing, so that resolves any notice defect for them. However, if it's a simple correction, that's something that staff and the applicant can.
Yeah, I am a little confused on how they even got into a Zoom. Like, because it says see the town, like see Madison, see the website. So how do you get into a Zoom without linking through? So we just go on zoom.org?
Well, I mean, I think what they were saying is that whatever they received, whatever they got, that they were going out, these are all abutters, I think, who got whatever they got letter, right?
Yeah. Yes. No,
Yeah,
I understand they got the wrong password, but like, how did they get into this? I don't understand how they got into the Zoom and then what put in wrong information. Like,
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah. Okay.
Hopefully, I think we
One
all
of-
try to clear for next time.
Maybe they went to the town website and
That's,
got in
that's
that way.
one of the girls said that they wound up, they couldn't get in with the original, then they went to the town website and were able to get in that way.
Okay. Okay.
Is there language we could add to the notifications, diverting to the town website should something go amiss?
I think the
says
legal
that.
already says.
Oh, it does, okay.
Go to madisonct.org.
Okay.
Yes.
Unless it was something specific in the mailing from the applicant.
That's what I'm
right.
wondering, because that's what a couple of
yeah.
them referenced. They kind of referenced the mailing as being the culprit.
The meeting can be conducted remotely on a Zoom webinar, and public is invited to join through the webinar link or call in information. And then it says for details, go to madisonct.org.
What
Oh, they must have went www.zoom. Okay, Zoom. That's how they got in. Zoom.us and then put in the info. Okay. I just got confused on how they got. Okay.
Okay. Well, it's not
figured out.
Yeah.
We're
gonna figure it out. Yep.
I felt bad for them that clearly that was but anyway, but outside of that, thank you very much for your work. That's all my comment. Thank you. Oh, and I'm so glad we're not doing the law stuff tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that scheduled though, Aaron?
Oh, right.
No, we have to
So
pick a
Ira
date.
and Pete are
Oh, the
available
law.
next Monday. So they're gonna try to, so their hope that's the 12th. So just an hour from 6 to 7, and they're gonna try to send out, Pete's putting together some information to send out ahead of Monday's meeting. But just a quick kind of update on legal, decision making. It's good, I think, considering we've had quite a few significant activities and, proven infeasible, all sorts of things. So,
No, that's good.
a quick refresher. So start jotting down your questions if you have any.
I was just gonna say, but thank you for moving it from tonight to a different night because
That was,
So that's Monday, the 12th?
yes, we'll send out, they just confirmed this afternoon. So,
But
we'll
6
send
o'clock,
out a
6
special-
o'clock next, not 7, 6.
6.
Okay,
Yep, all via Zoom.
all right.
And
All
just
right.
to reiterate, thank you again for all your help on these really complex applications. Getting the extra guidance has been really helpful.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Glad to help. There's some interesting ones.
And while we're all
Never
together,
a dull moment, right, in land use.
should we talk about site visit dates, or do you want to do that via email? Or did
We'll
we?
just send you, we'll pick a few Saturdays and we'll send you a doodle poll and you can check off the dates that you like best. And once we get a consensus on who can make the most, we'll book that as a special meeting.
Okay.
All right. Does the Inland Wetland Agent have any more comments? Nobody? No other comments? All right.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. Well, thank you. I know it was late and hopefully we'll be shorter next time.
Next time.
Excellent. Good night.